Is there a certain desperation, ladies and gentlemen? That's the question that comes to mind when we see China pressuring Sri Lanka and in the way also blocking, like it did in the past. They blocked Masood Azhar, now they're blocking his brother Masood Azhar being now sanctioned at the UN. So why are they using that veto? Because is China desperately now going to leverage whatever leverage it has or use whatever leverage it has on Pakistan and on Sri Lanka against India? And what does it mean for us, and what is the challenge for us as India? We'll try and dive into all of that. Let's try and understand why Sri Lanka succumbed to the pressure. Now, it fears that China could veto or stall IMF loan. That's the big pressure. Understand that China now holds nearly 20%, 10% officially in terms of cash, but basis on investments, etc., nearly 20% of Sri Lanka's debt. Sri Lanka is going through a financial crisis. So no matter how much help India offers, China can still squeeze them. Nearly 20% of foreign debt is from China. The other aspect that stands out is it fears that Beijing could block aid in the future. And it also controls a lot of the investments and the companies which are still active in Sri Lanka. There is a lot of state money that's embedded there. They're scared that China may want an early loan repayment. The moment that happens, it's also quite steep. The interest rates are quite steep compared to international market and also what the IMF numbers are. But the terms are different, and that's the reason why. This is the economic squeeze that the Chinese would want to apply. Then there is the other aspect, ladies and gentlemen. Why is it that Sri Lanka is ignoring India's help? Sri Lanka could have found a way. When it said you defer your thing, was that perhaps in respect? But then, should India feel slighted? Why is there no respect for this? Is this ignoring India's help? Which is the nation that stepped up to help Sri Lanka in this time of crisis, despite knowing fully well that the Sri Lankan disposition was firmly in the throes or in the lap of the Chinese establishment, that's the CCP. $500 million agreement for supply of fuel products in February. Then comes in April another $200 million that was extended in credit line for fuel products. In May, a consignment of $16 million as humanitarian aid was sent. 14,700 metric tons of rice, 250 metric tons of milk powder, 38 metric tons of medicines. They were all sent in June. And in July, 2 more ships of diesel and petrol were sent to the island nation. So far, the estimate is that nearly $3.5 billion plus worth of aid has been sent across by India with no conditions, no strings attached. But why couldn't Sri Lanka do this? Or should we look at it in such a way that the Sri Lankans deferred it beyond our Independence Day and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations, and it's now happening between 16th and 22nd of August, despite the pressures that the Chinese were putting on them? There are multiple ways to look at it, but more importantly, this is a serious challenge. Nations around us are in serious economical distress, financial distress, and at the throes of the dragon, which is baying for India, which is eyeing critical installations and, of course, critical positions, and it does not want India to grow. Then now look at the other neighbor, which China is using as its offensive against India, that is Pakistan. Quite literally, they've turned it into a vassal state, so much so that the Chinese can now tell the Pakistan army chief how he needs to use his forces and where he needs to put them. It can also tell them that we want boots on ground. It can also say that we're going to switch off the power supply if you don't pay us money. So there is so much so that Bandal and Bundu Islands, they've already gotten it written in the Arabian Sea. Off Karachi coast, off the Karachi coast. So there are so many other issues, and how deeply the Chinese are embedding themselves. They're all across POJK, they are all across on ground in Balochistan, and the Baloch are also upset. Now what they have done is they have halted India and US's bid to get the Jaish deputy chief, Masood Azhar. He's the man calling all the operations. In the past, they have blocked Masood Azhar's listing. Now they blocked the brother Masood Azhar's being designated as a terrorist. China using its veto powers to put the process on a technical hold. This is what they do every time, something which has not gone down well with India, with the MEA issuing a very, very strongly worded response, calling out Beijing's doublespeak when it comes to crack down on Pak-based terrorism. And the person doing it was the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar himself, while he was speaking to Nikhil Joshi at News 18.
Since everybody seems to be very perturbed by the developments between China and Taiwan, and the activities in the Taiwan Strait and the diplomatic outreach that is happening, I'm sure China has contacted and so has Taiwan. Where do we stand? I'm sure you don't want to get into details on a camera, but can you give us, the citizens, a sense of how the government is thinking on this issue, sir?
Well, I think yesterday the spokesperson actually gave a very measured and objective statement on that. I would refer you to that. I don't want to add to it because I think what was conveyed was something which was very carefully thought through.
Well, measured for sure, sir. I did follow those words. Also, what I was looking for is the country's stand on one China policy, because the party spokesperson...
I think he answered that also yesterday.
Did he, sir?
Yes, he did. I would urge you to look at it.
Okay, sir. Let's talk about al-Zawahiri's killing in Afghanistan. It's similar to what happened in Abbottabad, Pakistan, when Osama was. Taliban now saying we will not let terror to flourish from our land. Pakistan at that point saying we don't have any connection to terror. We want to block these Rauf Azhar, Masood Azhar on the UNSC. We don't have a permanent seat there, and China is blocking us there. How's the country looking at this, sir?
Look, you know, let me make 2-3 points here. One, very few countries have faced the kind of terrorism that we have done. I mean, today we are marking, it's Har Ghar Tiranga, which I will be going on to do a program now. So 75 years of independence. It's 75 years of great achievement, 75 years of progress, but it's also 75 years of challenges. And among the challenges, beginning from 1947, if you see how events happened, unfolded in Jammu and Kashmir at that time, the use of terrorism as a instrument of pressure or coercion against India has been something which has been very much part of these 75 years. So we have to be very resolute. We have to have clarity on this. It is not an issue on which we can ever compromise. So what for us to press for a sanctioning listing of notorious terrorists, people who have not hidden what they have done, is absolutely natural. And whether if other countries choose to block it, I think that is for them to think about what they are doing and what that means for their own credibility when it comes to terrorism.
So is China using India's neighbors? Let's dive into that, and there are many layers within. So Ambassador Parthasarathy, who's not just got his finger in the pie in the past about dealing with these issues, but he's also closely tracking what's happening both in Pakistan and in Sri Lanka, and the Chinese interference is with us. Namaste, and good to speak with you, Ambassador Parthasarathy.